and a manner of that's different from the states that experienced the recession of '08 in Europe, while maintaining a large trading presence with Europe and the fact that we sell many products to the European Union as well. Yet at the same time, regardless, we are outgrowing them in growth due to the factors that are at home. In addition, China is booming as well. While it's not growing at the same rate as usual because of the reduction in U.S. demand, the links are not here proving to be that. The second reason I want to talk to you is that Greece will not automatically serve the Eurozone. What will happen is now Greece has left a trading privilege that goes around. One of the fundamental issues with the Eurozone is not only the monetary system, but it is about the trading privileges that each member has. They refuse to have any tariffs between one another. They give free labor movement between Greece and all other EU members. These are things that were removed from the status quo, which will make trading harder than in the current situation. I'll get to your question in just a moment. Then being under this, according to the trade issue, Greece will default, removing from the EU will ruin trade as well because their consumption of outside economies will go down. The reason that Greece has a fledgling economy is because Germany is bailing them out. They're not just demanding austerity, they're asking for austerity in exchange for giving Greece the money to function. Now that you remove the money that's keeping their GDP popular, as he mentioned, and I'd like to go into this, I'll expand on this later, this is important to note throughout the round, what the formula for GDP is. And it's very simple. It's not complex. It's consumption plus investment plus government spending plus the trade overall deficit or surplus, exports minus imports. And if government spending suddenly goes down drastically because Germany is no longer feeding Greece money, what happens? GDP as a whole declines greatly. In addition to this, then consumption declines because now when Greece, the government of Greece is the main employer of the Greek economy, then these Greeks are out of jobs and no longer have money to spend. Therefore, again, we show that the trading essentially does not happen. If you cross-apply these arguments in the Greek economy, you'll understand that Greece will not leave the depression, they'll actually have a new one. And the only understanding they have is the cited word improvement. But we know Krugman is not as valued of a high economist as you would have him believe. Krugman has been demonized for his failures to talk about how the Fed interactions would save the United States federal government and the returning business environment from the '08 recession. He's been demonized for his failure to predict the success or demise of the surplus that was issued after that same event. Krugman is not the lo and behold. We need some logic from the firm to do it, and it's missing. Therefore, silence is concession. You must take the argument that I've given to you unless they come up and give you something that is more reasonable to apply. I'll take your first of two questions.
Okay, so I appreciate the rhetoric that you've given so far, and it sounds wonderful. Would you have us to believe, though, that we should prefer your ideology over that of the leading economist in the entire world, and you've given us no evidence to prove so?
I've given you evidence that, first of all, he's not the leading economist in the world, right? And therefore disqualified this understanding that he's the lo and behold greatest authority. As well as to cater to this question, this implication, is to cater to the fallacious fallacy of appeal to authority. That it says nothing about the logic of the value itself, but merely the fact that Paul Krugman is the know-all, be-all, is basically the book on economics, that just because he says something is true, it must be done. And the entire economists of the world said that the '08 recession would never happen, that derivatives were a good thing. We saw how that worked. And yes, I answered your question. If you have a question another minute, I'll give you another one.
Okay.
Just a minute. All right. This being on the case, I'm going to go first on the off case. Now, we're talking about the increase of human rights. And I'm going to break this down very succinctly. And in the status quo we need this. We have a rise of well-known neo-Nazism within Greek Orthodox. And the subpoint linkage is that they are fiating the fact that financial rules that prevent human rights violations. If you are found to be a state that has certain human rights violations, the EU can punish you in certain ways, like halting your banking, charging you higher interest rates, not trading with you, etc. These things fall through, and the control of the EU fails to present the things that the neo-Nazis are trying to do at the local and state government as they grow as a major party within the Greek movement. We've already seen national stories about videos of neo-Nazi members punching women in the face in the middle of the parliament and challenging the role of government. This will see an expansion of this, and the impact is that those Greeks who are targeted by these will be victimized at a much higher level. And this is preventable by allowing Greece to remain a member of the Eurozone. Second is that this will grow directly against the economics. They will cause the Greek economy to not only experience a depression, but one of the greatest depressions any country has ever seen. We're talking about the fact that Greece defaulted not because of austerity. They defaulted because they ran out of money to run their government when their government was everything. Everyone was employed by the government or was receiving social security-like benefits in order to live every day and thus pay for the stores that existed in the country. And when they realized that Greece could no longer keep this high level of spending up because they couldn't afford the high interest rates and the debt, what happened is the lenders said, we can't afford to give you any more money, and the line stops here. And the EU said, in exchange for us bailing you out and paying for the current spending that you must maintain, you must take care of this debt. It's the combination. But now that the EU money coming into the situation disappears, they're unable to pay the debt. Therefore, what happens? They default. And if you imagine, we know what happens in default. All the economics all over TV talking about the insane ramifications of the United States defaulting, not on the world, but on itself. Greece operates in the same manner, and therefore we'll see this happen in Greece, and the impact will be large unemployment, setback of 10 to 20 years in reforming their economic and social security-like situations. And lastly, I'd like to give one final DA, and this one is very important. When we're talking about Greece, Greece is tied to many countries around the world. And especially as we know, being a member of the EU currency is about the alliance and the economic advantages that these individual countries have together to create a monetary policy that is cheaper in the exchange rate, or excuse me, not cheaper, more valuable in the exchange rate over the US dollar and others because of the large size of countries that are united in the use of the monetary policy. And on this status quo, the B to this is that they're fearing that they leave the EU at a time when their monetary value, their dollar is at risk and doubted by investors all over the world. To see the impact of this is what will happen is people and creditors around the world will lose their credibility in the EU. As a result, we'll see things like people taking their currency out of the EU and seeking to the fledgling protectors we have in the world, like United States treasuries, like the US dollar, like the burgeoning pound we have in Britain. These are issues that we have all around the country where people will flee this money, causing these bad effects to happen. I ask that you cast an opposition ballot.
I'm just sorry you didn't take any more prep time.
What was the second, your advantage title, the second one? So
The second title was human rights violations.
that was the first one. What was the second?
The second one? What's the second one?
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, is everyone set? I guess I'll give you the thank yous. Thanks to my opposing team, audience, judges, my grandpa. Just kidding, my debate partner. This is gonna be a great round. Brief roadmap. You said those are off clock?
It's fine.
If we're quick. I'm going to go the two off-case positions and then reaffirm the untouched on-case. Okay. With that, we'll go. I said I was going to go off-case. I'm going to start kind of with an overview of the round. First of all, what we see here is we see two disadvantages. You as a judge are going to be looking on weighing out the net benefit, or the net impacts of both, a magnitude scale, whose impacts clearly outweigh. With that, we're going to hop right into the whole idea of the human rights. We look to the idea that he's like neo-Nazism is rising in this area, but here again, like the idea that this in its essence is bad is wrong. It's just like saying, well, no, the Tea Party is rising in America without a direct impact. Like, what's the impact of neo-Nazism? He says that there's women getting punched in the face, but who, like, what does that do? And have you seen that, or did you hear it on the radio? Like, I'm saying neo-Nazism, just because there's a new party in the system does not mean that that's necessarily inherently bad. That's just like saying that having neo-conservatives is bad. Like, it doesn't necessarily make sense. So when we look down to like the impacts over here, he says that the country itself was huge on Social Security, but look back to our inherency where Ken comes up here and he tells you that they were doing just fine before the entrance into the EU. And now I'm going to explain to you like why they were doing just fine before the entrance into the EU. Because Greece, just like America, when we suffer with our debt, has control of their central bank. This is crucial. The control of your central bank means you're able to set what? Interest rates. The whole way that America curbs our it curbs inflation and also makes sure that we have enough money for in our country is our central bank. Bernanke has some of the most power in the world because of his ability to raise and lower interest rates on a national level. Also, give back what we saw as like bailouts. Without their ability for them to control their own central bank, they are now penalized by Germany. It's nothing to do with the fact that they're lazier on social welfare programs. This, in its essence, should give you reason to drop his whole arguments on human rights. He literally comes up here and he says they're lazy. No, they have no control of their central bank. In other words, they are not in control of their own fate. I'll take your first question.
Isn't the EU as a monetary as a currency, it's a strength derived from the fact that these EU countries coordinate their monetary, control their central banking system together. Therefore, they have this larger scale that allows them to have larger value. So isn't Greece deriving a benefit from this coordination?
Absolutely not. Look to their current situation. They're suffering from a depression. It's not just Krugman who says it either. Stiglitz also says that in October of 2012, they are suffering from a depression, and without control of their central bank, there is no way that they're going to be able to recover from that. So continuing on, look at the impacts here. Really, he says the impacts are large unemployment. This is not unique. We see large unemployment right now. In fact, the austerity programs are focusing to have more unemployment because they're cutting programs like having their state workers. So we have larger unemployment by not passing plan. Also, he says it sets them back. What sets them back is not having the ability to control their own market scheme. Without being able to control interest rates, it would be like America not being able to control its interest rates. We would have a housing market that was unable to be recover from collapse, and ultimately we would be suffering far greater than we are now. We wouldn't be able to come out of the recession that we're in right now. So, turn on his human rights impacts, but now let's go into his disadvantage number 2, which is the EU econ. He pretty much, the moral of this story, to kind of paraphrase down, is that they're going to lose credit, and therefore people are going to pull out investments. This is actually good. This is a good thing. Right now, Greece has too many foreign money flooding its markets and its economy. We argue that people pulling their money out is the best situation for Greece. Currently, inflation is too high. By pulling money out, this controls and curbs inflation. It's the only set of controls that Greece is going to be able to have. Just like the devaluation of currency in China with their lowering the yen and being able to ship products to our country cheaper, therefore raising their GDP because their trade increases, this is the same sort of effect. When all the foreign money exits Greece because they're afraid, it's finally going to give Greece a stable platform to be able to build up their own currency again. So we're going to say that this is not only a good thing, but it's essential that this disadvantage, which is actually advantageous for Greece, happens because it levels the playing field, gets rid of all the foreign money, and therefore it allows Greece to set up their own system with their own central bank again. But now let's go on to our on-case positions. Starting with inherency, we see that mostly I'm going to say pull this stuff through, just like we're playing shooting shotgun shells. Pull, because inherency flows through. We have the idea that he doesn't argue that the misconception of the Greece states, right? So all the gypsy states. So Greece, Italy, Portugal, Spain, Ireland. These states were doing just fine before the EU. Something happened to all of them at the same time. Was it just because Greece